the four Marcellus kids and everything that definitely have careers and out there doing great work in the jazz world. Ellis was their father. A lot of people consider him in a lot of ways to be the father of kind of that newer New Orleans sound and things of that nature. So he has passed on, and definitely, from what I understand, his was, from what I understand, definitely COVID-19 related, but he was definitely a jazz legend and definitely a jazz great, and definitely people in New Orleans, people throughout the country, people out through the world definitely recognize Ellis's great talent, and he did pass away. I mean, he did live a very good life. I think he made it into his early 80s and things of that nature. And the same for the great and legendary, and I did load up some of his music, this next artist that I'm going to mention everything, but Bill Withers also passed on, and I know probably even you remember some great Bill Withers songs that you liked and everything, Dean, because we all had our Bill Withers songs that we liked back in the 70s and things of that nature. I was a big fan, and that's one of them that I loaded up, of Grandma's Hands. But I know a lot of folks also like Lean On Me and Ain't No Sunshine and some other great Bill Withers tunes. And then the third person that I was going to mention, I meant to mention him, I believe, last week because he's actually been gone now for a while, is the legendary Harlem Globetrotter, Curly Neal, who is actually out of the Greensboro area. But, a lot of folks knew him from his exploits for many years with the Harlem Globetrotters. So we definitely must give salute to all three of these folks who have passed on into the ancestral grounds, but their memories will definitely be remembered for a very long time.
Also, Curly Neal was an HBCU legend, Johnson C. Smith State University. So, we never know. And, a lot of people say, well, they're following the directions, but those were the directions given to us by the elders and the ancestors a long time ago. For some reason, we forgot them. So now we're being made to remember them. And maybe, I remember my grandfather said, let people walk up on you, make sure you don't shake their hands because the hand's dirty, and all of these different things that we, in the age of inclusion, try to pass to the wayside. But now we have to remember them again. So you know what? We're going to jump into this PSA real quick, and then we're going to bring our guest in. It's Straight Talk with Dean and Mark, y'all.
Every day, I wake up at 5 a.m. to give Dad his medicine. Every day, I wake up at 5 a.m. to give Dad his medicine. At 6 a.m., I make his breakfast. Every day, I wake up at 5 a.m. to give Dad his medicine. At 6 a.m., I make his breakfast. At 7 a.m., I shower. Every day, I wake up at 5 a.m. to give Dad his medicine. At 6 a.m., I make his breakfast. At 7 a.m., I shower. I start laundry at 8. At 10, we go for a walk. Every day, I wake up at 5 a.m.
For those dealing with the daily struggles of caring for a loved one, we hear you. That's why AARP created a community with experts and other caregivers for advice, tips, and support. Together, let's help each other better care for ourselves and the ones we love. Visit aarp.org/caregiving. A public service announcement brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
And we're back with Scott Sawyer, and we have him here at Straight Talk with Dean and Mark. Mr. Sawyer, welcome. You're on the line.
How are you
Good
doing,
to be here.
Scott?
Thanks for having me.
Glad to have you, Scott. Scott is a longtime musician that has been playing music around this area for a number of years and is definitely one of our treasures here in the Durham community. That's the way I like to consider him. I mean, he has performed with some of the amazing artists here in this area. He's had the privilege of performing with Lois Dawson and Nina Freelon, and the list goes on and on. He's also had his work done on definitely some movies, some, I believe, TV shows and things of that nature. So Scott has definitely been doing a number of things in the music world. He's got a new CD that is out, and he'll definitely be getting a lot of releases, and hopefully he'll be getting some playing dates. But, of course, like everybody else, he is waiting for this pandemic to end, so it's definitely impacting our performing artists in a big way because, unfortunately, the venues are shut down, the bigger venues like the theaters and, of course, the nightclubs and even the colleges and places that Scott would usually probably be playing right about this time and everything. So, Scott, tell us a little bit about what's going on in your life. I know that you're probably doing what you're supposed to be doing and probably doing some woodshedding and, of course, promoting the CD and everything, and hoping that this thing ends sooner versus later, that even though we're hearing various predictions and everything, so that you can get back out on the road and do what you do so well, which is playing some great and amazing music. I mean, every time I've seen you, whether it's been at one of the local festivals, playing either with yourself or playing with some of the other artists that you perform with, I am always amazed at how talented you are, and I consider you to be both a great friend but also a great talent here in this area.
Well, thanks, Mark. Thanks for all the kind words. Write that down so I don't forget it. I'll tell you what I've been doing, man. I've been kind of forced to rethink how I'm going to move forward for a while, making a living, because I work part-time at East Carolina University. I've been teaching 1 day a week there for 10 years, and fortunately, I still have that job because I'm teaching online. But in the middle of May, that job ends until the end of August. So the bulk of my income has come from teaching at the Durham Jazz Workshop, and then other income has come from private students and performances. So the Durham Jazz Workshop, we had to shut down on March 13th. And right now, the earliest that we could open is the beginning of June, but it's not a given that we're going to be able to do that because obviously we're being very careful. So what I've been doing is figuring out how to transition to teaching online, because I basically had to figure it out to accommodate my jazz improv class at ECU and my jazz performance majors, applied instrument majors. And the good news is online. Well, the good news is that the technology seems to have advanced quite a bit since I last attempted teaching online about 6 years ago. I was using Skype at the time, and it just didn't work very well for me. Now, to be fair, I'm sure Skype has improved since then, and I'm sure that the internet is faster. But somebody suggested to me a while back to try Zoom, and a lot of people are using Zoom, and I found it to be pretty good. So I've been teaching online for a couple of weeks, and I'm comfortable with it now. The only downside is when I'm teaching jazz guitar or jazz improvisation, a lot of what I like to do with my students is to play with them in real time, to perform with them in real time. And that's not really possible. So I've been figuring out other ways to be effective. And I'll put it this way, even when things return back to normal, I'm still going to try to build an online teaching presence because it's actually been a lot of fun. So something positive has come out of this for me as far as the work goes.
Well, that's really good to
ahead.
know. And I've heard people saying that there have been positive things that have come out of this in one form or fashion or another, including people that have been doing online concerts and things of that nature in order to break the monotony of, as me and Dean were talking about, watching Netflix and doing some other things. I know that Shauna Tucker did an online concert with her piano player. I believe that was last week. And, of course, the North Star folks did one not that long ago. I think it might have been a week and a half ago. Have you done any online concerts that you put online to that people can watch during this time of some of your newer works or even some of your older work so that people can catch it that way? And also, if you would, give a little bit more details as to how you've been making the Zoom calls work. Because I know when I was talking to my friend Brett Chambers, who's a professor over at Central, he was saying that he was having some adjustment periods as well because some of his students, I think he said he had two that were in Texas, one that was actually, I believe, overseas, and I don't remember where. And the same with Trevi when we had her on last week, because actually one of her students, I believe, was actually in China. So they've been, having the students that are definitely all over the country, and in some cases all over the world. So how have you been managing this with the Zoom calls? If you want to just tell a little bit about how it's worked in your situation and how you've been making it work and where these students might be from. Are they mostly all here in Durham, or have they been scattered around?
No, they're scattered around. Some of them have gone home. Some of the ECU students have gone home. So I guess home would be Virginia. I think maybe one of them is in Pennsylvania. Some of them I think are still in Greenville. the ones that had apartments. One of them is up in New Hampshire, and I teach a jazz improv class at 2:00 on Tuesdays for ECU, and there's 6 people in the class, and for 2 weeks in a row, all 6 have managed to make it online, and there haven't been any freezing screens, frozen screens or frozen audio. I think a lot of it depends on your internet connection. If you've got a pretty good Wi-Fi signal and a decent laptop, I think it works really quite well. I don't think it works quite as well if you're using your phone. But I've been kind of surprised, actually very surprised, and that's why I'm kind of optimistic that moving forward I can continue to utilize the technology.
No, yeah. Well, as best I can tell, you've always been one that has been one to utilize modern technology in all the music that you've been doing, and both even before this current crisis that we're in, and just in terms of your music in general. What if you had to say to somebody what one of your personal favorite albums was, what would it be, and who are some of the favorite people that you've worked with have been? Is there anybody that you really were just honored to have worked with that are among that list of so many people that you've worked with that have definitely a long long repertoire of music that you have?
I mean, I'm honored. I'm not trying to evade the question, but quite frankly, anybody that asks me to be involved in their music, I'm honored to be a part of it, because I can tell you that as somebody who hires musicians to work with me, whenever I'm thinking about who to hire for a performance or who to hire for a recording session, I remind myself that it's best to work with people who really like the way you play and who really want you to be involved, not because of who you know or what you've done. Clearly, Nina Freelon, I have very fond, feelings for Nina because she and I kind of got started in a way in terms of reaching out to wider audiences. It kind of began to happen for both of us at the same time. And for me, quite frankly, it happened, through my association with her. Her star has risen pretty high in the sky. But I've worked with other people who aren't as well known. Lois is one of them. The guy that plays saxophone on my new record, Dave Finucane, is a brilliant musician. Kobe Watkins is the drummer. Ron Brendel, who lives in Charlotte. I mean, these are some of the best musicians that I've ever played with, including all the famous, iconic musicians that I've been in contact with, who I'm not going to, spend time right now dropping names. But so as far as my favorite album goes, I don't know. Right now, my favorite record is my new record, Night Visions. Because it's fresh. But I think I've learned to like them all. Sometimes I don't like them so much right after I've recorded them, and that was certainly the case with Night Visions. I wasn't sure about it because some of the music was really new, and there wasn't the opportunity to perform, most of it ahead of time. And we basically went in the studio for 2.5 days and recorded. We didn't have rehearsals ahead of time. We would rehearse a tune and record it and then move on to the next tune. And it's actually a very exciting way to work. I think Miles worked that way in the past. And so that was one of the reasons why I hired Dave and Kobe and Ron, because I knew that I could bring them into a situation where every arrangement wasn't, mapped out from beginning to end. I kept things, pretty loose on a lot of the record, not all of it, but on most of it, because I wanted to see what suggestions they would have and what they would bring to the music, and they did a hell of a job.
Yeah. Now, even before this current pandemic that we're in the middle of, folks were definitely having mixed thoughts about the way that music was going in terms of whether jazz was getting enough love from the commercial world and commercial radio, and also whether but then the internet and YouTube, and I would even argue things like Reverb Nation and other things were opening up the music and everything. How do you feel jazz is doing as a musical art form as